Welcome to the In-Tune Guitar Academy. Today's special guest is Mike Tessier. He is artist, motorcycle enthusiast, luthier, and guitar tech. Please click like if you like this interview, and also don't forget to subscribe to my channel. So welcome to the In-Tune Guitar Academy, Mike.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you here. You're obviously very talented. You have a huge social media following. Just about everybody I know says good things about you.
You're way too nice.
And
it's because they don't know me very well.
well, it's a real honor to have you here.
Thank you.
So just to start off with, we want to talk about your early years in playing guitar. How old were you when you started playing guitar?
Probably about 12.
Really?
Yeah.
And who were your first influences, personal influences?
Well, I guess the guy that influenced the close friends to play is a friend of mine, Mark, which was a friend from pre-kindergarten, actually. Okay. The reason we even started playing guitar is because he got a guitar as a gift and just hooked on and kept going, and we just followed.
And you both had the same musical taste?
Oh yeah.
Mostly
well,
rock,
for a while till, till we kind of went this separate ways, Okay. I went into hair metal and he stayed into classic rock and stuff, but I like everything.
That's what I mean, to me it's all music. It doesn't really matter what style it is. I could listen to jazz, I could listen to country, I can listen to rock.
Yeah, so can I actually. I really enjoy it.
I find as we get older, we just have less of that facade that you have to be all rock or all hair metal. And
Yep.
Yeah.
God, I didn't even get into Pink Floyd till about probably 8 years ago.
Oh, really?
I had no interest in Gilmour whatsoever, and then I woke up one day and listened to Dark Side of the Moon and went, wow, I've been missing out, like seriously missing out, and I've been a big fan of Gilmour now since.
Has he ever been? I tried to copy some of his solos, and
two full step bends are crazy.
I broke a string trying to copy him. So, who was your first influence, like a famous person, your first guitar hero?
Rik Emmett, a
Rik
Canadian.
Emmett, really? Yes.
Yeah. I was the biggest Triumph fan forever, actually. In high school, we had a Triumph cover band, and I listened to Rik Emmett for so long, like a long time. I could relate to that stuff. I was in love with it for a really long time.
And he really has quite a YouTube presence these days, because since Triumph broke up, I think Gil Gerard is the one that owns Metalworks in Mississauga. Gilmour, sorry. Yeah. I get their names confused. He was the drummer, I think he was.
Yep.
And that's a very famous, it's a world famous studio in Mississauga, and a lot of famous acts have recorded there.
Yeah. And we never talked much about Levine, which was a bass player, but he was quite a presence. I mean, you got to be three accomplished musicians to fill that much space in a band. All three musician bands are like, Rush.
Right up there with Rush.
And we have big ones, and Canadian ones we can look up to, like Rush. It's wow. And
exactly.
It's incredible.
And then Triumph also, I think they played Rio de Janeiro at one time. They had hundreds of thousands of people. So it's to be able to have that huge following, and nowadays their website's pretty impressive. They have lots of retro stuff, lots of connections to their albums and to their videos.
That's very cool.
So in terms of playing live, were you in a lot of bands when you were in high school?
Not so much in high school. We tried to play. I think when you're in high school, you're kind of discovering, when you're young like that, I think you're playing music because you like it, but you want to impress girls and stuff. So you're probably playing for 50% the wrong reason. But and I've been more of a tinkerer. That's why I suck at guitar playing today, because I went one way and never quite learned the guitar very well. So I've always played by ear, and theory is very difficult for me.
You never took lessons? It's all self-taught?
Oh, lessons, I can count them on two hands.
Okay.
Yeah. This thing is a very mystical thing to me. I look at it and I go, wow, I think I'll be dead and I still won't understand like a thousandth of what it can do.
I think you just described 99% of guitarists out there, even the ones that learn to. It's kind of a dark art, really.
It is. Yeah. It's like golf. My dad's a golfer, and he's always trying to perfect something that he says he'll never perfect. So it's kind of the same for me as far as playing goes.
Talk about something that I like to do that I'm terrible at is golf.
Yeah.
So you were saying that you don't consider yourself a very good guitar player. I totally disagree because I've heard your videos online and Facebook, and I heard you playing just a couple minutes ago, and I would consider you an excellent guitar player.
Oh, thank you. Well, you should mention that, but what you don't know is even that 1 minute requires probably an hour of takes till I think that last take is like, it's kind of acceptable. I've got I've always had this stage fright thing, and it doesn't matter if it's in front of a camera and you're sitting there trying to get a take and nobody's in front of you, it's still the same because you know that your audience is there anyways, waiting. So there's good nights and bad nights. It's always been like that. You know, being a musician is all about that, good nights and bad nights. And you're very critical of yourself. So I've always been super critical. I've always, growing up, I compared myself to a lot of guys thinking, hey man, I want to play like that. But I realized that the body is different for every human, and dexterity is very different. So what one guy can do, even a 12-year-old on YouTube or a 10-year-old on YouTube, is going to be very different than me playing all my life. At 55, I'll never be able to do some of the things they're doing because I'm not made that way. So you learn to accept that and do what you can do. But I mean, as much effort as you can put into it always helps. And I kind of gravitated of doing more tinkering and building than actually playing. So I'm the master of my own destiny in that respect, right?
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
I agree totally, because sometimes you'll be playing a riff, or you make up a riff of your own, and it sounds good to you, and then you start playing it, then all of a sudden you turn on your phone to do a little thing online, and you keep messing up. You just, every time.
Over and over.
It happens to me all the time. Every time I try to do something for online, I just keep messing it up. And the other thing is that you sometimes you play it and it sounds great, but the next day you listen back to it and, oh, what the hell was that?
And the contrary, sometimes you're just talking about watching the last video I did, and I remember I did about 10 of those takes for that 1 minute and a half, and I played it, and I thought, oh man, that's rough. And then I listened to it a couple of times and went, oh, okay, it wasn't as bad as I thought. So it's presentable.
Exactly. So, what do you look for in other guitar players? Like when you're playing in a band, if you're...
Originality.
Originality.
Yeah, originality. I guess that the first big, I'll call it just an influence just because he influenced us to play a lot. I'd have to say Randy Rhoades, the very first huge influence, because we first heard Randy Rhoades and we went, there's Eddie Van Halen when that first album came out, so those are probably the two big ones, but I have a lot of respect for Eddie Van Halen and what he did and the feel, but I was more oriented towards where Randy was going with his music. And what's a shame is that most of the kids today, I've talked to a couple of kids today, and I mentioned Randy Rhoades. They go, "Who?" I'm thinking, "Are you kidding me?"
Well,
he invented hair metal.
Exactly.
Classical modes were basically Randy Rhoades, and it's a shame.
Yeah,
It's really a shame.
He mixed classical and he mixed rock together. He's one of the first to do that. So he really was a fantastic guitar player, and his life was cut short. If you get a chance, read the biography by Ozzy Osbourne, I Am Ozzy, and you read all about what happened to Randy Rhoades. It was just a completely stupid accident.
Killer to see what he would have been today.
Exactly.
Even if he stepped out and came back once in a while and did stuff. I mean, he'd be huge. But I mean, like anybody else, he's an icon, just like Hendrix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's too many of those famous guitar players that cut their life short.
Yeah, there's so many.
Yeah, exactly. The magical 27. There's always
Right.
Robert Johnson died at 27.
Right.
Steve Van Zandt.
Steve Van Zandt.
Was Stevie Ray Vaughan?
Yeah, Stevie Ray Vaughan was a plane crash too.
Yeah, he was a helicopter
But he
crash.
Oh, helicopter crash,
He was
right.
a bit older.
Yeah.
The disembodied voice you're hearing right now is our sound tech, Kelster Van Shredster. He's going to actually end up on the video at one point soon, but he can't help himself. And we don't mind. So how long have you been building guitars? When did you start doing that?
Actually, just 3 years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
And you're pretty incredible at it. It's amazing.
Well, thanks.
You got to that level and just that short a period of time.
Yeah, it's been pushing me my whole life, and I mean, the biggest inspiration is actually a really good friend of mine. We started building together. We still build together. All the stuff I do is out of his house.
Okay.
And he's my best friend. He's everything, you know. Like we're very different. We have a very different approach to what we do and how we do it.
Mm.
But we find ourselves meeting in the middle on stuff, and you know, he pushes my limits for certain things, and I really push his limits because we're totally about different process.
Okay.
Like so much about different process.
We were talking earlier, you said he's more of an engineering type of mind and you're more artistic?
He's analytical. He's very analytical. He's he overthinks everything, which is a blessing because he wound up engineering a few tools that are very crucial to this guitar stuff. Putting together basically handheld CNC machine that's really gotten us out of some pickles. And
A handheld CNC machine. That's...
well, handheld just because it's a CNC basically router that's computer, you know, a computer moves it around and cuts everything out. So basically, he made a table with a router on rails that's stable,
Wow.
which allows to plane stuff down and to do stuff that you can do by hand.
Mm.
And if we wouldn't have had that, there's a few pickles we wouldn't have, you know, it'd be very difficult to do without.
You're also known as a really good guitar tech. How long have you been doing that?
Oh, that's been a long time.
Okay.
I started tinkering, you know, I actually was just thinking about that on the way here. This friend of mine, Al, sold me a bass years ago in parts, like, I mean, we were 13 years old, and that was the first time I kind of touching stuff. And you know, then I progressed to putting other guitars together. And been doing it a long time, and then finally you decided, you know what, I can do this.
Mm.
So, you know.
It's something I admire because I'm afraid to touch my guitar. Other than
Yeah.
to play it on my, like Kelly's really good at tinkering. You're obviously very good at tinkering, but me, like,
Nowhere near as good as him.
no, but
Nowhere near.
It's, you know, I'm an artist. I've been an artist since I'm a kid. I used to draw a lot when I was a kid. I've been ADD my whole life, but back in the days, I'm 55 now, there's no such thing as a ADD diagnosis. They didn't have meds. There was no such thing. I mean, if somebody wasn't very good in school, it's because they weren't good in school.
right, exactly.
You know, but I come to realize that I'm very ADD, have been my whole life, and realized as an adult, you know, coming through high school, when it was just, that stuff was just starting to come out, that yeah, there's a condition, and you know, it's concentration. You got to find ways to keep yourself occupied that makes your brain work the right way.
That's like the story I've heard about traditional education. They'll try to make an eagle walk like a turtle and make a turtle fly like an eagle. And that's where I'm messing up
That's really funny.
the analogy, but they don't adapt very well to people's natural instincts. They try to fit you into that mold, and if you don't fit into the mold, they might call you stupid or delayed, but it's not the case. Maybe you're more artistic than analytical. They have to match.
Well,
personality.
It's a mix of everything. You kind of discover when you're maturing that you know, personal growth is very different for everybody. And you know, for me, certain things were really fast. You know, I could have been an architect, could have been an engineer, because my brain works that way. That comes from my grandfather. He was a huge contractor, and his brain would work well at thinking, I mean, I can. You have a problem you need to solve at your house or anything like that. I can solve it in no time. I can engineer something really fast. So, but it wasn't my way, because I had to move. Always have to be moving and thinking about doing this, doing that, and the other thing. You know, it's usually the thing with ADD.
Yeah, there's also, I mean, there's the traditional story between tradespeople and professional people. To me, some of the smartest people I ever met were tradespeople, because in my day job, I'm a sales rep and I'm involved in HVAC, so I talk to HVAC mechanics, I talk to plumbers and steam fitters.
Right.
That's my phone. Like I deal with tradespeople all the time, and some of them are some of the smartest people I know, and they have this
hands-on.
In growing up, we always had this impression that you had to go into university, you had to do this to be considered smart. But
hey, in high school, on the Quebec side, we had segregated teaching, which was completely wrong. You had people that weren't that way, and then you had the people that were hands-on, and they called it professional. And they had it focused that way so much that we looked at them and thought, it's like, those guys are dumb, which is completely biased and stupid. But that's the way the system worked, is they took them and they placed them where they're going to work with their hands. You're either smart or not, apparently, back then, and it was so wrong, you know.
Yeah, I hear you're also a cabinet maker.
Yes,
you were
I
a
am.
cabinet maker before you were a guitar.
I still do it once in a while too. Still design and build kitchens once in a while.
Yeah, and you, in your day job, I think you work for a company. You sell for a company that makes windows and doors.
Yeah, I've been in sales my whole life since I'm 16 years old. Yeah.
So what's it like making guitars? How does it make you feel?
Depends on the day.
Really? So you have good days, bad days?
Some days you just want to chuck it. Some days you want to chuck it because things aren't going. But that's like anything else, right? That's when you learn to walk away, because it's supposed to be a focus that gets you somewhere, and you get anxious about finishing. But some days it's not working out. You just got to learn to walk away, just like anything else.
Right.
So there's no magic to it. It's just one day's good, one day's bad.
So what's the most satisfying thing about making guitars?
Oh my God, playing it.
Okay.
Playing it, and it's everything that I imagine it would be, because it starts with with an idea, and then there's influences and stuff like that, and then you go, okay, this is what I need to do. This is what I need to do, and then you go to it.
So typically, how long does it take from design to finished product?
Probably up to 80 hours.
80 hours. Okay.
Yeah.
And you do that part-time in the evenings, on weekends?
Yeah, mostly evenings and weekends. It's the only time I have, because I work a day job like most people.
Yeah, exactly. And so,
But it's a semi-retirement plan too. I mean,
do you want to do this full-time after you retire?
yeah, if I learn to be able to let go of it, because the problem is that you invest yourself so much into it that it's really, really hard to let them go. I mean, there's part of myself that's so emotionally attached to it that it's like, no, I couldn't even sell this thing. If somebody offered me $4,000, I'd have to seriously think about it. Yeah.
Like giving birth?
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't want to know too.
So what's the most challenging thing you find about making guitars? You already touched on one, is letting go of that guitar and getting emotionally involved in it.
The new processes stuff, when I'm pushing my own limits of things I haven't done yet, because there's always that insecurity of, okay, I'm doing something I haven't tried yet. It doesn't overtake me, but it's always in the back of your mind. It's like, I'm at this point and there was a mishap I can talk about, and there's always little mishaps, and I can talk about it when we start looking at stuff. Is that you get to a point where you're so close and you're more than halfway through, and then something happens, either machinery or you're just moving too fast, and then you do something wrong, and then it's like, okay, cut this thing in half and junk it. It hasn't happened yet. I've been able to basically recoup every time and make it happen. But sometimes, it gets stressful towards the end, because it's like, don't make a mistake now, because you're back to square one.
All right.
Yeah.
So how many guitars do you think you've made so far?
Probably about 15.
Really?
Yeah.
And you make guitars for people on spec? Like
No.
No.
No, that's one thing I did for one friend, and it wasn't a bad experience. It's just I have a problem with timeline. It's when somebody puts that expectation on you, and you agree that it's going to be on your time, and it's like an artist. You can't force an artist to paint.
Mm-hmm.
You have to work when it's inspired. It's the only way it works. If you're not inspired, it's not going to work out. It's even harder when somebody has expectations on you and you're doing something you're not inspired to do. It's got nothing to do with the person. It's very personal.
Mm-hmm.
I did it once, and I said, okay, that'll be the last time for a while, because I'm not there yet. Yeah. I'm at development and basically challenging myself, doing stuff I like for me. And then when I get to a point where it's like, yeah, okay, I'm ready to let go, then I'll be able to say, you know, there's a niche for it. And the problem too is you invest so much time into something, you start putting monetary value on 80 hours of work, you know, you don't want to work for 10 bucks an hour, not even 20 bucks an hour. So it's like, you know, you're usually looking at something you can't sell under 3,000 bucks. At $3,000, you better deliver something really, really nice.
Exactly.
Yeah.